Hello there, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the community experts about their life journeys and how they came into the community world. And today we have a conversation with Lisa Barroca, an amazing person who I met at the beginning of my international community journey. And Lisa is the kindest person who is always here for you to support. And also, she is a community enthusiast at the Cultivators community of changemakers, writer, facilitator, and emergent strategist. So, hello, Lisa.
Hello. This feels like one of our meetings, but more fancy, and I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. And you know, we talk a lot with you like before, but I've never asked you about your writing. So, what are you writing about?
Yeah, I have always loved to write. I think since I was a little kid and learned how, I just wanted to document what I saw in the world and like make up little stories and use my imagination. So I think I'm still doing that in a way. I write essays and a newsletter that's more about my experience. So that can be my experience at home, my experience in sobriety, things that I'm interested in. So that's mostly what I write. And then I'm writing a little fun sci-fi novel project. It's my first time writing fiction and it's super fun. I don't know how to do it, but I'm figuring it out.
It's crazy. I've never heard about it. So, yeah, tell me more about it. Do you like write it for yourself or for somebody, or do you have some followers who you share it with?
Yeah, I would say the novel project is really just for me and I don't care if anything ever comes of it. It's just fun to make up a character and make up a world and kind of wonder what this person would do and what their life would be like. But for my essays, I got laid off in, oh gosh, May of 2021. And in that space where I like wasn't working anymore, there was like this big hole to fill. And I knew I really wanted to lean more into my creative practice because my job had been so draining that I had really let that go. And it's something that's really important to me. So I started a newsletter, and I mean, all of my friends were very kind and joined to read it. And I started doing 2 newsletters a month, and then it moved up to 3 newsletters a month.
Mhm.
And I think as of July, it was a year, and I've done it consistently. So what I like about it, I'm not worried about followers. I don't promote it. Most of it's my friends, though other folks have found it. It's nice to know that someone's reading because it keeps me accountable to doing it. And it makes me not give up because I feel like I need to send it at a certain time.
Yeah.
But I mostly write it for myself, I would say.
Do you have sometimes this feeling, oh, I don't want to write, but I need to?
Yeah, I definitely have that I need to, and I try to reframe that a lot.
Yeah.
I try to reframe it so that I get to, because it is something that I love to do, and it's something that I've seen so much growth in myself and the way that I write over time. So it's not something I ever want to give up. It's just that thing where sometimes the thing that's good for you to do is not the thing you want to do. You'd rather stay in bed for that extra hour in the morning, but
Yeah.
I am proud of myself for keeping it going for over a year.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
And about a novel persona, is it you or it's like some imaginary person?
It's an imaginary person, but I mean, it's probably me on some level, right? That's like the psychologist take. But yeah, I'm writing this person who I'm imagining what it would be like in an apocalypse situation if there was a person who just woke up and everyone was gone, everyone. And I'm sober, and so I'm writing this like from the perspective of a person who's like still in active addiction, and like what it would feel like to wake up hungover and have everyone be gone and have to like piece your life together. So it's not me. I've never woken up and had everyone gone, but it certainly felt like that at moments in my life. So it's an interesting thing. I'm really enjoying exploring like who this person is.
Never know. Maybe one day we'll see a movie about that.
Gosh, maybe one day. It would there would be one character and a very nice dog.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm a legend, So
Yeah, kind of. It's so funny because I was starting to think, and again, I don't know if anything will ever come of this, but I started to wonder what it would be like for someone who is like a woman or a femme identified person to be alone and like not be perceived by other people, to not have like certain looming fears of danger of like silence,
yeah.
and what that would be like and how that would be freeing but also really lonely. So it's like an interesting thing for me to work my brain around.
I would love to read it. So, but
One
anyway,
day
keep me posted.
I will.
And let's start from the beginning. So, tell me about your parents. Who are they?
This is the one question that I kind of knew that you would ask, because I'm a
Yes.
longtime listener, first time caller.
Be
um,
prepared.
I didn't prepare, but I did. I definitely think it's really nice to get a chance to talk about my parents. So my parents are the absolute best. I also have a bonus parent. I have a stepmom named Erin, and she is wonderful as well. So I kind of hit the parent jackpot. But my mom's name is Louise. She grew up in Finland. She moved around a lot once she hit like her teen years. She grew up on like mostly farmland in Finland in a small town. And when she was 16, she moved to Sweden and then kind of bopped around a whole bit. So she lived in Greece and Spain and Israel and eventually moved to the United States to visit a friend. And she never left, which I'm obviously glad about because she met my dad here. My dad, his name is Dave. He is Portuguese. So he really grew up in this family that had just come over from Portugal. He's the oldest of three brothers and like needed to learn how to like assimilate in New York City, as new immigrants. My grandmother didn't speak any English, was wrangling three boys as like a young 20 something, which I have no idea how she did. And my dad, he is an electrician. He is entirely self-taught. I think he's a little bit of a mechanical genius.
Yeah.
And he loves rom-coms. He's like the sweetest dad. And he met my mom in a lighting store. He's an electrician. She was working in a lighting store, and that kind of sounds like a rom-com. And they were married for 20 years. So they got divorced when I was pretty early on in college. And then he eventually met my stepmom, and they've actually been married for 10 years this year.
It's a really like, they sparked this connection. And
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, do you have this love to mechanics from your dad?
Yeah, I don't think I've honed it as much recently, but both of my parents are very good with those kinds of things. Like I have a very sweet memory of one of my dad's clients, had asked him to rewire a dollhouse when I was a kid. And it was this big, beautiful dollhouse because these were very rich people who could pay someone to rewire a dollhouse. And my mom refinished the dollhouse and my dad did the wiring. And it wound up being this like gorgeous, gorgeous thing that like the two of them made together. So they were both very, very good at making, like the act of making, which I think is an art that's often overlooked. But the mechanical side, I definitely love that stuff with my dad. We would work on cars and stuff when I was younger. He's really into cars still. So definitely learned that from him. And then the like furniture refinishing and that kind of stuff from my mom.
And what are you making by yourself?
What am I making by myself is a really good question. I'm like, am I making anything right now? I'm always working on a little craft project of some kind. So whether that is like making kind of like bath products for friends and mailing them out, or whether that's like cooking or baking for people, or I do some embroidery too. So I'm always working on little stuff, but I don't think I have a big project right now.
What is your favorite dish?
My favorite dish to make or to eat?
To make. Let's start from to make.
To make my favorite dish. I love making steaks. I got a cast iron pan and learned how to make steaks on it, and I'm constantly trying to get good at it. So I'd say that's my favorite. And my dog Remy always gets a tiny little piece of the steak, so it also makes him happy.
I believe he loves it
Oh, he
so
does.
much.
It's also his favorite dish.
Yeah, totally. And tell me please a little more about your mom. Why did she travel so much?
Yeah, it's so interesting because northern rural Finland, I think that she was in a small town. She got kind of bored and wanted to see the world. And she has always been interested in travel and language. And she's always also just she's a tough lady. Like she can make it on her own. She is very, very resilient. She's very creative in like the ways that she comes up with to do different things. So I think she just wanted to see the world a bit and have adventures along the way. And still, I mean, I've known my mother my whole life, obviously. And every once in a while, she'll be like, when I saw The Who in London, and I'm like, you did what? Like, she's an enigma and she's had so many cool experiences. And I think I'm like still learning my mom after all of these years. But I think she left because of a combination of just boredom and the cold. But we're actually going to Finland in a couple weeks together. So it feels a little bit like a homecoming.
Yeah. I have this song, I'm coming home.
Yeah.
I'm coming home. And do you like traveling?
I do. I haven't done it in a while because of COVID. But I do. I hope to travel a lot more. There's plenty of places in the US that I still have never checked out, like the Pacific Northwest. And I'd also love to get around and explore Europe. I've mostly just visited where my family is, which is Finland and Portugal. But I'd love to travel around.
What is the best moment of traveling for you? When you got to a new place or when you return back home?
I think there's like a real sweetness in both moments because like there is that curiosity of a new place and you don't know what your experience is going to be like and it takes you out of your routine. And sometimes I'm a person that needs a push out of my routine because I love my routines. So it always feels like an adventure to arrive somewhere, but also I have a very good life and I'm very happy in my home and with my partner. And so coming home also like feels really sweet and very precious to me. So I think I'd say at this point in my life, both.
It's a great answer. Thank you very much for saying that. And also you told me that you've been a single child in the family for up to 23 years. And then you've got 3 step siblings. So how does it feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. They're wonderful. I was an only child for so much of my life and I never expected to have siblings. So getting like 3 all at once was, I think, I was like, I don't know how to be a sister. I don't know how to be a sibling. And that sounds really like silly to say, but they seemed so good at it because they'd had so much time with each other. But they're also and my stepmom too, and also like their whole family has been so welcoming to me and just really kind and like silly, and we get into shenanigans all the time. And I mean, they're wonderful. Their names are Brianna, Kaylin, and Connor. And Brianna is actually getting married next week. So we get to go celebrate her and her fiance.
Yay. And do you have like the same connection with every one of them, or maybe you meet like how do you meet? You meet all together, or you meet like with somebody and then with somebody else? How it works
Yeah,
for you?
they're all younger than me. So Kaylin and Connor, they're twins, and they live at home still. So when I go back to Long Island, where I grew up, I will stay at my dad's house sometimes, and they're both there. They work a lot, both of them. So I often don't see them all that much. My stepbrother works nights. So usually it's like a passing,
Yes.
hello, Connor, and he's out the door. And then Brianna and her fiance live in their own home now, but for a long time she lived there as well. So I got to really get there and like hang out with all of them and be immersed in the family, and that was always a really nice experience. But even now with Brianna living out of the house, I think we spend a good amount of time together when I'm home.
Also, you know the next question too, because you listened to previous episodes. So let's move to yourself. Tell me a little
Yeah.
about your childhood. Like, from what age do you remember yourself, and what that time looked like?
Yeah. I remember myself from probably, gosh, it's hard to put a number on it, but maybe like five, six, I guess. I remember first grade, kindergarten and first grade really well. I had a great kindergarten teacher named Mrs. McGill, and she was really like strict with me, but also really encouraged me in my reading and stuff, because I was a kid who was like a smart little kid who had a penchant for getting into trouble if she got a little bored. So Mrs. McGill really helped keep me occupied and like channeled that creative energy. And then I remember when you asked that question, the first thing I thought of is being in first grade and being in a Spice Girls club with my friends. And I was Posh Spice because I had very short hair. And we would like sell tickets. I don't think anyone had any money, but we would like sell tickets at recess, and we'd do shows, and we'd like lip sync the songs and do little dances. And I remember that feeling so cool, and being really proud to be in my Spice Girls club as a kid.
Do you like karaoke?
I think I like karaoke in theory. I don't know that I'm brave enough for karaoke. I think it would have to be very specific conditions.
You have such great experience. So,
I know. I was a real it's funny. I think back on like that childhood confidence that you have to just go for it, and I wonder like where that gets lost along the way. I think a lot of like the last few years for me has been looking at like where was that childhood joy coming from, and like how do I touch back into that? How do I touch back into that confident kid who was like singing into a hairbrush at recess, because I think that that's something I don't want to lose.
it's really a great question. How does one like lose their confidence? Because I know many shy kids, so they're shy and then they like become kind
Yeah.
of like, I don't know, thought leaders and all this stuff. So it's really interesting. And tell me like about Miss Miguel. How can a person be strict and encouraging both? How does it work?
Yeah. Mrs. McGill, my mom still sees Mrs. McGill sometimes. So she's still in the works, but I think she just set boundaries, and she was like, hey, this is the stuff you can't do. And like, if you do it, here is what will happen. And I was always kind of a kid to push those boundaries, but like she held them. And I think that was really good for me because I felt like she cared about me enough to like keep me a little bit in line, but in a very kind way. I mean, she wasn't like a teacher who yelled. She is someone who like really got us into reading, really like helped us work together as a class to do things like we'd like clean up a park or something like that, and she just really encouraged us to care about each other and care about ourselves. And part of caring about each other was like staying a little bit in some boundaries, and respecting other people and respecting myself and respecting her class. And I think that was an important set of lessons to learn.
Tell me about one trouble you got into.
This was not in Mrs. McGill's class, but it was a year or two later. It was a year or two later. I had a group of 3 friends that we would play hockey together, and it was Joey, Danny, and Matt, and we would get into trouble in the art room, and we had these big rolling garbage cans in the art room, and they had just changed the bag, so it was empty. And my friend and I got into the garbage can, and then our other friend pushed us out the door while the art teacher wasn't looking and pushed us down the hallway. And I just remember spinning in that garbage can down the hallway and being like, this was a bad idea. And of course the garbage can fell over. And we were okay because we were little kids. So you can fall when you're a little kid, and you're pretty resilient. But we got in a lot of trouble from the librarian. I don't remember her name, but she was not happy, which was fair. And we got in a lot of trouble for that. But it was fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine like how loud she yelled.
Yeah, I don't remember if she yelled at us, but I know we went to the principal's office for it. And I know my mom was very much not happy with me.
Yeah, good childhood, I would say.
Yeah. I had great parents. I had good friends. I think I was really lucky in that department for sure.
What did your mom tell you when she met you after principal's office?
I think she didn't talk to me for a bit, honestly. My mom is the strong, silent type. I think my dad will like get mad and he'll yell and then he's over it. He's like, okay, you want to go get lunch now?
Yeah.
Whereas my mom will be quiet and you're like, I don't know what you're going to do next. But I don't specifically remember. I'm sure I got grounded or something. But I know she wasn't happy with me.
Yeah. I know that one of your favorite books, maybe even favorite, is Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown.
Yes.
So tell me, what is the emergent strategy and how do you use it in your everyday life?
Yeah, so emergent strategy is, I learned about it from this book by Adrienne Marie Brown, and it is the way to reshape complex systems using relatively small interactions, is the way that I've heard them explain it. And they have a podcast. Please check it out if you're into that sort of thing. But it's based on a lot of her work around Octavia E. Butler's work and this idea of shaping change and how change is something that is always happening. It is the constant that we can't control, but if we can recognize that it's there, maybe we can shape it in directions that we need to go. So I read the book probably 2 to 3 times a year. I think the entire book is highlighted. Like there are no words that are not highlighted. There's so many Post-its in there. And I think I often fail a lot in bringing the concepts into my life. It's easy to read things and it's harder to put them into practice, but I review the principles in there a lot. And I try to think through, like, when I'm doing something really small, how does that ladder up into the big picture? And how can I do this with intention and with care towards the big picture? And how can I be a better collaborator? And how can I, place trust in people and move at the speed of trust? And just, it's something that I think about in probably everything that I do. But I think putting the principles into practice is something that I'll always be trying to get better at, you know?
And how did you fall in love with this book? Was it from the first read, or maybe from the second, or maybe you like tried to do something and then like, oh, it really works?
I read the book for the first time. I had heard about it a lot. Adrienne Marie Brown and her sister Autumn Brown have a podcast called How to Survive the End of the World. That I started. Yeah, I started listening to that podcast, and I mean, they're both just brilliant human beings. They're like those kind of folks that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm alive on the earth at the same time as you, because I really think they're both brilliant. And I had heard about the book. I got the book, and I was traveling to, I think, a work offsite when I started it. I had saved it for the plane, and I was sitting in an airport reading the introduction, and it was just like, I could feel my brain kind of like breaking apart and like lighting up. It just was a way of seeing the world that made so much sense to me that it felt like coming home, and also felt like such a good call to push myself to like show up in different ways. So I loved it before I even made it through the introduction, I think.
Yeah. You are the kindest person I've ever met in the community world. Okay, maybe Max Pitt maybe can compete.
I am happy to be the vice to Max, because
but I didn't have so many conversations with him. So for me, you are the kindest. And tell me, have you always been so kind, or did you become this person at some point of your life?
First of all, I feel like really grateful that you say and think that. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm really glad to be perceived as kind. I think I try my best. I really care about folks a whole lot. And that to me is the basis of community. Like, I'm not there to try to get you in a space or necessarily like get you to an event, or, you know, like if you're there, I care about you because you're a human being that deserves care. And I hope that shows up as kindness. But I think I'll always be practicing how to be kinder, how to be more patient, how to listen better. But yeah, I've had plenty of people be really kind to me, you included, Max Pitt included. So I think I also learned from being around kind folks.
But it was before the community or in the community world already?
I don't know. I don't know if I could, like, if I'm the best judge of that. I think back on my college years, and my college years were really when, and I think I've said I'm sober on here already, but that was when my drinking was really the worst. And I think I strove to be kind, but I was not in a mental space to be very kind. And I think back on like the ways that I like held a lot of judgment of other people because I was really judging myself, you know, and I didn't want anyone to look at me. So I was deflecting to other people, and that's behavior that is not in alignment with my values or my integrity. And I hope to never be in that place again. I don't think I ever will be, but yeah, I mean, I think I definitely have had moments in my life where I did not act how I wanted to act or how I should act in accordance with my values. And so I try to be in alignment as much as I can, but I don't know the when.
It's life, so yeah. And before you started a community journey, you were a legal assistant. Mm-hmm. So why and how did you make this pivot to the community?
Yeah, I worked for a single practitioner lawyer, and it was such a good job. He was such a good boss. I worked with two women in the office who were both skilled paralegals. Wonderful job. I would not have left it if I had not been offered the job I was offered. when I got sober, that seems to weave through everything. It was in an online program, actually, and I participated in the community for that. And it was the first time I had really ventured into an online community. It was a Facebook group. And I was kind of blown away by how much connection I could feel with these people who were literal strangers over the internet. I kind of couldn't believe it. But we were moderated so well, and we all came in with like open hearts, and it was a really special experience. So once I was done with the course, I volunteered with them for a while. And eventually they wound up offering me a job, and it wasn't a community manager job. It was more a moderator role. So I came on board for that when they offered me full time, and that's why I left my legal role. And eventually they were looking for their first community manager, and they gave me a shot and they said, "Will you be our community manager?" And I said, "Yes, I have no idea what that is." And then I went and I Googled for a while and panicked that I couldn't do it. But I loved it. And I was there for about 3 years and then moved on to Cultivate.
You are doing great, so no worries at all.
Thanks.
And what is the difference between moderator and community manager? Isn't it the same, kind of?
Yeah, I guess I operated as a community manager without knowing it, and so did my colleagues, because we would have maybe 2 cohorts of 60 people moving through this 8-week course. And I don't think we had the language of like make an engagement plan or, anything like that. We didn't know what we were doing, but we really cared about people and we wanted to take care of them and we wanted them to meet each other. And especially for those of us that had been through the program, we knew how important that community piece was. And so we really put our hearts into making sure folks had a good experience. And so I think we were looked at by the company maybe as more moderators. That's what our job description would have said. But I think myself and all the folks that I worked with like really tried to go above and beyond. And I still am in contact with so many of those folks. Some of them have gone on to like build other communities, and it was just a really sweet experience. I'm glad it was my first community experience.
What was the emotionally hardest conversation you've ever had with people you worked with?
With people I worked with? I think in my last role, I had a lot of tough conversations, and those went a lot of different ways, right? Like I had a team that I really trusted, and I think really trusted me. So they felt able to give me feedback. I felt able to give them feedback. And that trust was there to be like, hey, like if you're saying that this wasn't great, I'm willing to look at that because I respect and trust you. And I know that you wouldn't be saying something if you didn't mean it. But I think as a community team in that role, we had a lot of tough conversations with our leadership around inequities in the program. A lot of us were queer people. We were not necessarily as a company, as a program, serving minority folks in a great way. And we had a lot of really tough conversations with our leadership about that, where we really tried to push for change. And some of that was met, and sometimes like we had wins and we were able to create new spaces or hire new folks or change a company policy. But I think ultimately a lot of those conversations were not heard by our leadership. And I think that changed the conditions of the company in really hard ways, because it was a program and a company that we really loved.
And what about the conversations with community members?
Yeah, with community members. I'm like trying to think. What I worked in as my first community role was, again, in this recovery program. And you're working with folks who are trying their hardest to save their own lives. Like they are often facing a lot of challenges. They might be facing legal challenges because of complications with say a DUI or other charges. They might be facing challenges in the mental health system. We would have folks who sometimes were taken to psychiatric treatment against their will. And a lot of the systems that are put in place to quote unquote support people who are dealing with addiction or with mental illness often can really harm folks in the process of that. And I think having those conversations was really hard because these were all people who were trying their best, doing their best, and they weren't always seen outside of our community and outside of our program as the whole incredible, creative, silly, wonderful people that they were. They were often reduced to this title of addict. And I think those conversations were hard to have and really important to have, to give folks a chance to be seen for all of who they are instead of just this one piece that made people judge them.
You are always here to support people with uncertainty and challenges, but how do you deal with those emotions you receive from them?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I have a wonderful therapist. Shout out to Sheila. She's the best. My partner is also a community manager. And so we talk to each other sometimes about challenges that are going on for us, or if we have a really intense situation that happens, we'll talk to each other. I think running helps too. Sometimes I need to move my body to think through a problem or shake out feelings of worry or whatever it may be. But I think part of working with people is to a certain extent carrying their stories with you. I think people's stories should impact you and change the ways that you move in the world. They should change your perspectives. You should be open to learning from them. And so I hope that I carry the lessons of my community members and my team forward with me too.
Therapists need therapists, so
Yeah.
community managers need community managers.
Yeah, we do.
And it's fun, but I never asked you, how old is your dog? So how old is Remy and how did you get him?
Yeah, Remy is 6 years old. He is perfect. He is my one dog son. He is, I say he's Minpin in the face and Schnauzer in the waist. He also has a little bit of Chihuahua in him, but he was actually my partner's dog. So Max got, this is a different Max. There is Max Pete, my friend, and then I also have a partner who is a community manager whose name is Max. But my partner, Max, got Remy when they were 5 months sober. And he was their recovery mascot, got them out of the house, doing things, being responsible for something else outside themselves. And they really became a buddy duo. And Max and I were friends before we dated. And I'd always see the pictures of the two of them on the trail together and stuff. And so I had a lot of affection for Remy before he was my dog. And the first time I met him in person, I was visiting Max and I walked into their apartment. I remember thinking, if their dog doesn't like me, we're done. You can't date someone if your dog doesn't like them. And so he was so sweet. And I mean, he's the sweetest boy, Remy. But yeah, I from that day on, I was his mom.
It's like meeting a parent,
Yeah, but higher stakes somehow, because I feel you could maybe win a parent over, but if a dog doesn't like you, that says something about you, maybe.
What do you think? If you ever decide to have one more dog, will Remy forgive you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. We talk about it and we're not sure, because he's also a small dog where if we we brought him into the big dog side of the dog park the other day, and he feels like that's where he belongs. And he like chased off this gigantic lab that was like 4 times his size and stuff. So he's a tough little guy. I think whatever dog we'd get would have to know that Remy was the boss. But I think one day we'll try to get a second dog, but we'll see.
Yeah. A long time ago, Abigail tweeted that when they have a 4-bedroom house, the buddies are moving in and told you to be ready. So are you ready?
I'm always ready. Abigail is my friend Abby, she was my friend and then my roommate in college. And gosh, we lived together in a dorm room, and we would just get into like such shenanigans. Like our neighbors would always yell at us for being too loud. Like we'd blast music. And we were just like so silly, like just like wholesome silly. And then we stayed friends after college, and it was her and our friends Lucy, and we called ourselves the Buddies because we operated on the buddy system. When we were at parties, we would yell buddy, and then we'd put our hands up so we'd know that everyone was safe and okay. But yeah, we always called ourselves the Buddies. That's so funny. Yeah, Abby and Lucy, the best.
Also, Abby shared your Instagram post, Born Unapologetically Nasty.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that, Lisa.
Oh gosh, I think that was in the like immediate post-Trump year of, I think myself, like a lot of other white people in the US, was like just coming into social consciousness. So we might have been doing our best, but our best wasn't great. So I think that was leaning into that kind of like nasty woman, Hillary Clinton kind of stuff. My politics have since evolved beyond that, thankfully, and I think they will always be evolving beyond that. But if I'm remembering, I mean, I want to like be kind to myself too, because I think that when somebody is trying to learn, I never want to judge them for not being at the place that I am, because there's also like people who are way further down the line than me, and like it's not a race. So I just always want to like encourage folks to learn, but I'm like, wow, I was at a different place in my journey then. Very different.
Yeah. Do you have one life rule or principle you always stick to?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have one. I think I'd like to think that it's just like a commitment to curiosity and a commitment to wonder. I like being awed by things. Like I like being like, oh my God, have you seen that cloud? And like, this thing is so cool that I just learned, you know, and that's something I want more of in my life. So I think that would be the one I'd hope it would be.
We had so many conversations also with Steve about curiosity. I asked him, he asked me. So welcome to the team.
Yeah.
Curious people.
We need shirts. Those are our shirts.
Yes. Tell me about your tattoos.
Yeah. Gosh, I have a whole bunch. Let's see which ones we can see. This one's probably my favorite. It is a set of 3 loops. At my last company, I worked with all of my best friends, and we had a newsletter called The Loop, and it had this little logo on it. And my friend Sid was moving to Australia from the US, and we were all in Denver for this like one short amount of time. And so our friend DL was like, why don't we go get tattoos? And we were like, what are we going to get? And they were like, let's get the loop. So a whole bunch of us, I think there's 5 of us. So my partner Max has one, I have one, DL, who's actually in town visiting this week, Sydney all the way in Australia, and Christina in Texas. We all have matching tattoos. So that one's my favorite. It's our promise to keep each other in the loop no matter where we're at in the world and in our lives. And I think we've stuck to that quite well. And then I have 2 horseshoes. So I grew up riding horses. I had 2 horses that were very special to me that passed while I was in college. So this is a little remembrance for them that I often forget is there. And then I don't know if you can see this. This is going to be a weird angle, but it's Joan of Arc. And it was done by my friend who I used to work out with, Krista. And I got that as I was leaving Florida and kind of leaving my old life behind and moving into a new phase of my life. And Joan of Arc has always been kind of just a really important figure for me. And when it comes to standing up for what you believe in, no matter what. So I've got Joan there to give me some strength.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. It's amazing. And how do you feel about making mistakes?
Oh gosh, in theory, I think I feel good about it and I know it's supposed to happen. And then like in the moment while the mistakes are happening, I'm really hard on myself a lot of the time. That's something I'm working on. But yeah, I think I am pro mistakes in theory, but not always in practice. So I'd like to get a little better with like giving myself some grace there.
What is the biggest mistake you've ever made in your life, which you can share for sure?
Gosh, I don't know. I think the interesting thing is that when you're in the moment of a mistake, it feels like the worst thing that could possibly happen. And then as you get further and further away from it, you realize that like where your life is now could not have happened without those like quote unquote mistakes. So I don't know. I think a lot of the things that I often think are mistakes or like maybe other folks would look at as mistakes in my life, like I dropped out of college for a long time, or like I got married and divorced, like those things were not mistakes to me because they taught me so much about myself and where I needed to go next and put me in a spot where like I could move into my life now, like both literally and also like emotionally. And so I don't know. I don't know that I'd say something was a mistake that I can think of.
They were lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that like a Rihanna tattoo? Never a mistake, always a lesson, or never a failure, always a lesson.
Yeah. And Lisa, I can talk to you forever. It's like you can just go and do like 3, 4, I don't know, 1 day long show. But let's be honest, I wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but time is the limit. So let's jump to the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Podcast or book?
Book.
Conference or unconference?
I don't know. I haven't been to many unconferences, so I'm not sure.
What are your favorite color and sun?
Favorite color is green. Favorite song, I don't know if I could say for all time, but my favorite song right now is Francis and the Lights and Chance the Rapper, May I Have This Dance, is the one that I've been playing on repeat lately.
Yeah, I was like 200% sure that your favorite color is violet, but really? Okay. Yes, I don't know.
Because I use the purple emoji?
Most likely, yeah. If you were a superhero, what superpower would you have?
I think I'd have like, oh gosh, I don't know. I'd really like to be able to understand all languages. I'd like to be able to understand folks and listen to them.
Who do you learn from in the community world? One person.
Hmm. I mean, I learn so much from you. I get to work with you every day, and I'm really lucky for that. I think that a lot of conceptions I had about ways that I do things in the community space have been like challenged by working with you. And I mean that in the best way, because like seeing you do things has made me more open to the possibilities of how I can do things. I also have learned a ton from Tristan Lombard, has been wonderful. I had a C-School mentor, Phoebe, Noel Flowers,
Yeah.
Max Pete. So I've learned a whole bunch from a whole bunch of folks. And of course, I mean, my whole community team, when I was in my last role, taught me everything, and not all of them work in community now, but especially DL and Max.
Name two people who I definitely have to talk to about their community lives.
I knew you'd ask this, and I need to,
You didn't prepare, aren't you?
I would love to hear a conversation with Noel. I think that Noel Flowers would be a good one. And I feel like my partner has like incredibly interesting ideas about community. They're not really out in the community space chatting much, but I think that they are brilliant. So I would say Max Backer also.
Got it. Is there one question that I definitely should have asked you but didn't?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Cool.
I loved this conversation. It was really, really nice.
Lisa, thank you very much. You know, it's crazy, but even though I thought that I know you good, like the new pieces of your life. So thank you very much for sharing that. So like I believe that it's a whole bunch of discover to make in the future. So we will definitely have like volume 2. So
Yeah, I would
it's
love
like
that.
not taking into account all our conversation while we are working and all this stuff. So yeah, thank you very much for being so open and kind, and yeah, really like your support means a lot to me. So thank you very much for being this amazing person.
Thank you so much. I feel so lucky to know you, and I'm so glad to be on this show. I'm a big fan, and I listen to all the episodes. So I'm honored to be here and grateful to be learning from you.
And for this episode, you don't have to listen because you already
Oh
lived
gosh,
through it.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and listening to your own voice is so
Uh,
hard and the worst. So I'll take you up on that. This is the one I skip.
yeah, once again, Lisa, thank you very much. And as always, see you in Cultivators community, in the community world. And I hope one day we can even get a chance to meet in person. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to it. So thank you very much. See you later. Bye.
See you later. Bye.